So a bit more about myself. As mentioned, I'm a designer, I'm a drawer, and I'm also a dog mum, and that's my wee furry beast there, Pepper. And these are some handles if you want to have a wee snoop on me later. But yeah, what led me down the world of a UX design career? So memory lane. In 2008, I did a foundation year that then led into a degree in fine and applied art, which was at the time, the subject I studied was STVP, which was Sculpture, Time, Video and Performance. Now it's had many acronyms, so I have no idea what it's called currently. And then after that, I got awarded the Artist Designer in Residence within the Art College. And I also began a postgraduate module in Innovation and Entrepreneurship. At that stage as well, I began working with a local art collective, Loft. So I was hosting group exhibitions and sort of and group events through that. In 2013 then, this inspired me to start my own company. So I started Liffey Designs, and it's had many faces over the years, but currently I offer custom portraits and graphic design services to people. And then after that, in 2017, as a way to sort of more self-teach and build up my technical knowledge of design, I began Creative Wedding Company, which is a bespoke wedding stationery service that I provide. And I also began freelancing that year. So I made my company my full-time job. But for some, being your own boss is the dream job, and it has been fantastic, but my work has a very fickle nature and it's very seasonal. So I've had to supplement my income sometimes with part-time jobs. So in between, I've just been working on various different things. So why UX design? Well, I turned 30, and as part of that, you know, it comes a bit of self-reflection. And as I sort of look back and all that I'd done and sort of what I wanted to be when I grew up, I realized that everything that I had been doing had something in common, which was people. So with my art career, I predominantly was focused on how the user, or how the viewer would interact with my work. And, you know, I wanted to create those relationships. And as such, then that is honed my curiosity and composition skills, you know. And then through my work thereafter with the residency and with my sort of group events, I really was passionate about sort of multidisciplinary collaboration. So bringing worlds that would never meet together and have these really meaningful conversations. So it helped my confidence in that as well. Through my companies as well, I'm very passionate about how I can create a really tailored experience for each person I work with. And I do many different things, but with branding, for example, you want to reflect that company, and their personality, and it's very, very personal work. Through my portraits, you know, you have to respect the fact that it's a very sentimental thing. You could be doing memorial portraits and things like that. So you have to, again, then tailor your service to suit that client. And then especially with the weddings as well, this sort of mirrors with the weddings where it's such an intimate experience that you, because I do all my work bespoke for each couple. So you're getting to know this couple and getting into their relationship, and it's, you know, it's building those relationships and making sure that your service matches it. Then as well with my part-time jobs, that has actually been a really good tool for me because it's given me more empathy and it's allowed me to view the general public and read people. Basically, you know, everybody has varying needs and I deal with people on a one-to-one basis, and I have to sort of, again, tailor my service to match their needs. But at the center of all this has always been UX and creating those meaningful experiences for the people that I'm coming into contact with or, you know, working with. So this leads me on nicely to mentorship, which was one of the first projects that really got my sort of teeth sunk in to the world of UX design. And it came about again in a conversation with my husband last year, where he was saying about how he would always get pinged on Slack or, you know, on Twitter or something for him to be a mentor of somebody or, you know, advice and things. And it was very sort of messy and wasn't contained. So we decided to build this environment of like a contained sort of system that would allow these interactions to happen in a really fun, interactive and friendly way. So what is mentorship? So it's an application which promotes conversation and peer learning between colleagues. It exists to enable people within the workplace to connect, share skills and gain knowledge and create relationships no matter their job title or geographical location. So that means that CEOs can mentor interns, interns can mentor CTOs. There's no sort of hierarchy in this system. It can be used to create a sense of company community outside of internal teams and helps with individual career progression and builds self and social confidence within the users. So it can help them in their career but also help, especially now, you know, build those bridges or build those waters that is keeping everybody apart. So basically it's the Tinder for teaching, but it's not really that. It's not really. So this is a really in-depth project, and I know I have limited time, so I'm just going to sort of focus on the key goals that I wanted to get out of this project, or the solutions that I wanted to build for it. So number one was functionality. So how would it work? So my goal was to design a system that connects people with each other. Then secondly, enjoyability. So what will make people want to use it? I wanted to create a platform that was fun and friendly and inviting for people, and not in any way intimidating or, you know, give off a sort of very, this is a work thing that you need to do vibe. Then sustainability. So why will the user want to keep using it? You know, I wanted to add design elements that will keep the user motivated to come back and continue the use of the product. So how did I do that? So first and foremost was the functionality. So this is the sort of introductory screens that you see here. So, you know, you have your login, you have your profile, and then you like users register and then build a unique profile to them and list the skills that they want to learn or share. Then with the login registration, I really wanted to create this sort of flow and like fluid system that was very clean, and, you know, the call to actions were very visible and information was always there for the people using the product. So I played a lot with color and sort of how it matched in, and like sort of kept that differentiation between screens, but also that sort of fluidity and sort of consistency throughout. Then with the main challenge I faced was, this product is based off an algorithm. So everybody uses their, like, enters a tag that they want to learn or teach, and then that's paired with another person. So how was I to show those tags on screen? Because the number of tags can be infinite, but there can also be recreational as well. I didn't want to make it just career-based, and as this sort of project evolved, it was more like, how can we make it more friendly and sort of separate it from work, but also maintain that sort of connection with people? And that was the main sort of basis that I wanted to build this project on, because, and I think, like, I worked on this a lot over lockdown, and I think that even now, you know, people are separated from each other, and that, like, but having something that can connect those people is really, really important. So I added an accordion feature that you can only show the top 5 skills on a profile, and then if you want to see more, you can scroll down. And I actually thought about implementing a system where the user can pin the, like, 5 tags that they really want to learn or really want to teach. So then, as I said, like, it uses a tag-based system to pair up users, so they can then, this is the sort of screen which connects people together. So you can enter a skill or that you want to learn, or a skill that you want to teach. And also mentors and mentees, they can work simultaneously. So somebody can be a mentor and a mentee at the same time. As I said, there's no real hierarchy. Then they can continue the conversation in the internal group chat, which saves clogging up emails or Slack or anything as well that can get busy during the day. So how was I going to make it fun for people to use? Like, you know, how was I going to keep it interesting for people? So with the colors, I leant heavy into the nautical thing, and I had a lot of fun with them. But I think red in itself has a lot of sort of connotations with it, as we all know. So playing with it was a bit of a challenge because, you know, it can prompt, you know, warning or danger or things like that. But I think balanced with the blue, and then I just used them as accent colors, and balanced off a grey, which sort of kept it a more neutral and sort of friendly appearance. But I did want to play with that duality in the whole thing. Then language, again, lent heavy into the nautical. So I had a lot of puns, and, you know, just, I wanted to create that really friendly and one-to-one experience, and like, you know, like just really friendly and personable nature, like, you know, ahoy sailor, welcome aboard, like, who can guide you on your way, show you the ropes, etc. And then I also, a big feature, because this was sort of inspired by social media, and it is sort of an internal social media platform, but for learning, I wanted to implement features that I thought that the user might be familiar with. So, you know, it's a match like Tinder thing, or, you know, making a profile or logging in or registering with something. Those are things that the user's not going to be unfamiliar with. So I wanted to continue to make it more that sort of friendly, soft place rather than, like, you know, harsh and intimidating, because, you know, imposter syndrome is rife in the tech world, and even myself, you know, I suffered from it. So it's creating that sort of safe environment that people are familiar with, that makes it a friendly, like they're happy going into it, and then can create these meaningful relationships by using it. So then I also played a lot with graphics and custom illustrations, again, to just add that playfulness to it. And, you know, at the bottom right, there's a sort of screenshot. I don't know if you can see it clearly, but that's the backdrop to the chat, which again was sort of mirrored off, like, you know, the WhatsApp chats with that sort of like background and stuff, and just keeping that familiarity and playfulness with the whole thing. So then the big one was sustainability. So why, like, you know, this is all good. You know, people can use this, you know, for a day or two, but what will continue this use of the product? So for the mentors specifically, I created a gamification system. So it's badges and ranks. So the more people that you mentor, the higher ranks you go. And that's so beneficial for career progression, because your manager or your boss could see this and go, here, you're a team player, you're a captain, you've mentored over 10 people, this is class, maybe you need that promotion, you know, that sort of way. So it runs all the way through up to 10, because if you mentor 10 people, fair play. Then the sailor as well, it's the sort of baseline term that is used to sort of denote everybody in the company before they start mentoring. So I know that there might be some people that use the product that might be a wee bit scared to sort of mentor or think, you know, before they start going on that journey. The sailor, everybody's a sailor, because no matter what, even if you're a captain, you're still a sailor. Do you know what I mean? So then I wanted to create an internal chat room, as I've said, just to sort of keep something separate, that, like, from Slack or emails that can get clogged up during the day, and it's just very overwhelming for people. So I want to just keep this sort of a light-hearted thing on the side. Hello. So then mentors, for them, an incentive, I thought, like, the best way that somebody would want to continue learning was through accountability. So I added an options panel in the chat screen, which allows the mentors to set goals for their mentees, which then they can track their progress and sort of see how far they've come, and sort of it'll help boost their confidence, and their sort of, they'll want to learn more, and maybe then be inspired to mentor others at the same time. So in summary, we've built a product that connects people together, and it hopefully works. Then we've also made it fun with the use of color, graphics, language, and played with those sort of things just to make it really inviting for the user. Then we've also added elements such as gamification and, you know, accountability to help, like, as an incentive for continued use of the product. So final thoughts. This is an ongoing project. My husband's actually building it, but as it continues, I know that I'll face so much more UX challenges, but I actually can't wait because I've learned so much through doing this product already. Like, my next goal is to make a mobile version of the application, just to sort of, again, keep that sort of separate nature of the product. But on a more personal note as well, like, you can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. So if you're at a crossroads, or, you know, if anybody listening here is thinking about getting into UX design, the tech can be very intimidating, but you just have to know what you're good at, or look at what you're good at, or what you're passionate about. And for me, it was people, so I leaned into that. And I think you should find what you want, you know, look at what you're passionate about and lean into it, because you never know where it'll lead you. So that's me. Thank you very much. And any questions, put them in the chat.
That's brilliant, Louise. Thank you so much.
No problem.
We're always talking with our startups, as I mentioned earlier, about UX, and we talk to them about getting the pen and paper, or pen and crayon out at the start. A good question to lead off with might be, you know, how long would you spend kind of on that sort of creative pen and paper stage, you know, before you start even going on online, roughly? You know.
So how much to sketch it out before I actually build it? Yeah. To be honest, like, I would sketch out a wee bit, but I think as the sort of things continued, and as, you know, I just sort of all did it that was built in XD, but I just like sort of did it as I went. But I think it maybe helps that I have that sort of, like, you know, icon graphic design background. But if you don't, like, pen to paper, absolutely use that as much as you want, and then hash out the whole thing on like your system. But for me, that was a few weeks, probably about 2 to 3 weeks, to properly get everything up and like, you know, everything sort of designed properly. But like, my husband, as I said, he's building it, so he would come to me one morning and go, need a login screen, and I'm like, on it. Like, you just, various things take different times, but you just have to allow yourself that sort of exploration phase as well, and have a wee good play with things too.
Yeah. A question in regards to gamification. I know it's not built yet, but are you hoping to sort of gather data around how, you know, how people use the product and that side of things?
Oh, absolutely. Like, you know, this is still in very, like, you know, testing stage. And I think as, like, that's at the start as well, like, as people log in, there's actually a message saying, like, thank you for registering. Like, we're building up our database, because there's no point in using the product when there's nobody that you can match with. So I think as it continues, I'm really excited to hear feedback and hear how we can improve, because I think that is the thing with UX, and what's making me so excited, like, about UX is I come from a stationary background, which is what it is, which is stationary. Like, once you have a design, it's done, it's printed, it's out the door. Whereas with UX, you can evolve and you can make those really important changes, you know.
Had you know, a question in terms of, are you testing your designs with potential users? You know,
yeah. Well, my husband, he's been showing
alpha and beta testers.
He's been showing it a lot to, like, you know, his work colleagues and things like that, and, you know, how, like, and they've been given feedback of how we can make it better. So it's constantly evolving.
That's like focus groups and sort of friends and colleagues, that type of thing. Yeah. Cool. No, that's super. Any other questions that are coming through, guys? I mean, just keep throwing them into the chat, and we can always come back. But thank you so much, Louise.
You're very welcome. Thanks.
Really appreciate
Thanks for having
me. David, do you want to go into this?
Oh, so I think Dermot was up next, I think. Darren, if you want to start sharing screen, I'll sort of introduce you.
Sure. Yeah. Hope. Ooh, is that sharing? No.
Not yet, man. There we go.
There we go. Hopefully that
super
works out. Yeah. Hi guys.
Is that your slides up, by the way, or is that a picture?
This is just an actual photo of me last night making the slides.
Okay. Cool, man. Rock. Let me introduce you quickly. So Dermot is a UX developer at Adam Partners, and he's got nearly a decade of experience in design and front-end development, working with big names like RBS, NatWest, Jeremy Action Cycles, Reward, Micro Focus, and more. and he's very much in between, like a hybrid of a designer and developer. And he's found this new role as a UX developer at Allo Partners. So I think he's going to talk to us a bit about that and much more. So Dermot, just want to jump in and take it away?
Yep, cool. Thanks, David. Yep, so my name is Dermot. I am a UX developer currently at Allo Partners. They're a digital and creative agency, local in Belfast. And I can't really talk too much about it because it's my second week working on it. I've just started. So come back to me with more questions later on about it. But I've worked sort of in the past, a background in design, but I've worked mainly as a front-end developer in different companies. So right from small freelance projects with myself to startup companies to SMEs and right up to global sort of ones. So I've worked like RBS and NatWest, big banks, and Micro Focus and Chain Reaction Cycles. Some of the names you may have heard of. So yeah, I'm just going to talk about, so one of my co-workers earlier on mentioned the description for this event says 3 experts about UX. So I'll be the 4th talker. And I'm not a designer as such. I'm more, I have a design background, but I'd always be in the development and working on development teams. Typically is the main design talk or point to talk to about design, but not necessarily a designer in my job role. So I'm going to talk to you about this house, if you may or may not have heard. It's called the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose in California. Maybe some of the Americans might know about it a bit more in the chat. So it's actually the inspiration for the haunted mansions in Disney World, and it's known as one of the most haunted houses in America. So before the sort of 1860s, if you wanted to fire a rifle, if you've ever watched movies like Pirates of the Caribbean, you remember how they have to fire them really slowly. You put in gunpowder into like a little powder charge, and you have to pour it into the barrel, and you have to get the bullet and you put it in, and you have a ramrod and you have to stick it and push it down. Then you have to fit a percussion cap and pull back a hammer. There's a whole lot of business, and writing to fire one shot is going to take at least as long as I've just said. So in comes Winchester Gun Company in the 1860s, 1870s with the Winchester repeater rifle. And it was capable of firing 15 shots in about 10 seconds. So it became known as the gun that won the West. Now, I'm not going to be talking about the UX of the gun. I'm more talking about the history of the family here. So in comes Sarah Winchester, who marries into the family. She marries in to the heir William of this massive fortune. Unfortunately, there's a huge string of bad luck. She has a horrible time. They have a child, Annie, who couldn't absorb protein. And even though they've all the money in the world, she ends up starving to death. And then 5 years later, the husband, William, then dies of tuberculosis. So she becomes suddenly the heir of over $20 million, which in the 1860s is equivalent of over $500 million today. So a lot of money. So she decides afterwards, after the death of her husband, she moves out to California and buys this house, which is the house we've seen in the front, with 8-room mansion, and she starts building. And it expands out to this. So she ends up hiring workers. Over a dozen workers were in their house at any time. So you have carpenters and tile setters and painters and electricians. They said that it went from 8 rooms to 26 rooms in the first 6 months. So other people have claimed that construction never stopped. So for round the clock and rotating shifts, day and night, 24 hours a day for 38 years, they had workers in building rooms, building staircases, building windows. And so the house just kept expanding and expanding and expanding. And you wind up with these really strange and odd architectural quirks. You can see here, there's like banisters around a window in the floor. You ended up having like these magnificent big halls, all these different styles and changes. And then you get weird stuff like staircases that go to nowhere. You had rooms. You have a complete maze of halls and doors, mashups, stained glass windows. You end up getting staircases that go to nowhere. You get doors that open into walls and out into like drops down to stories below under a concrete floor. Windows that don't get any sunlight. And it seems almost intentionally made to confuse people. Now, you wind up with, at the end of it, by the time of her death, there was 161 rooms, 2,000 doors, 10,000 windows, 13 bathrooms, 47 fireplaces, 40 bedrooms, 40 staircases, 17 chimneys, 6 kitchens, 78,000 litres of paint used to paint the house, 3 elevators, 2 basements, and 1 shower for some reason. Bit odd. So hopefully nobody here has had a DIY project like that. You know, everybody, hopefully has got a relatively normal thing. Maybe they got more showers. But I'd say some people probably could relate to it in some way in terms of a project they've worked on in the past that suddenly keeps getting on and expanding. And, you end up getting design debt, or in software, it's known as technical debt. Very, very similar. So technical debt, if you don't know, in software development is sort of creating problems for yourself in the future by taking easy solutions or not really having a plan. And you end up getting more and more into technical debt or design debt because of these things you've made in the past, because you're taking an easy way out or you're cutting corners. Design debt specifically more can be in the UI side of things, where you could have a call to action button that's styled differently in one part of the app or on your website than another. It can be a menu item that you just keep adding things to, and it ends up being this really confused of random placed options. It's the whole sort of feature creep. And a big part of why this happens is agile. Now, I'm not saying that you should be advocating for going back to waterfall or anything. Agile is fantastic. As a software developer, I love Agile. But the issue you can have with it is you get sort of blinders on when you're working in small sprints and small tickets as a developer. You kind of lose the overall view of an app, and the whole user experience can go out the window. Seen this floating around here during the week, and I thought it kind of did well for explaining like how you can go from a client straight to BA without any sort of concept of a designer or any sort of UX research, where you wind up having something like this. So hopefully that gives a sort of vague idea. So I think a lot of what I come across, and I've come across, especially when I haven't worked with, if I'm on a development team as someone who's the main focus is the good design and the UX, and you're not working directly with a design team, or a design team could be, in a different country or a different office, or just that, the traditional thing is they keep them sort of separate. And there's always this sort of understanding that UX is just your UI, and you can tell this is good UX from the horribly compressed JPEG here. UX is so much more, and that's always one thing that I've always found, is that people think UX is actually a synonym for UI. So just design, and that's just making things look pretty. And as you can see from this, there's just so much more involved in it. And that's always been one of my main struggles, is trying to get across the importance of having good UX on your team. Or if you don't fancy diagrams, here is a similar method in meme format. Your UX versus, or your UI versus UX looks nice, but the user experience is more than just how it looks. It's how you use it, user experience. So a lot of what I've done over the years has been trying to convince stakeholders and non-designers about the importance of good design. And again, like the idea is always, oh, design is sort of put into the back because it's just making things look pretty. It's not important. It's all about how it works in the development, and that's where the priority is. And this sort of thing can cause so many issues. So I'm going to go a few of the points of why you need to have good UX. I'm assuming everybody watching this, here in Belfast, it's currently 7 o'clock on a Thursday evening. I'm going to assume you guys have some sort of appreciation for having good UX, but maybe you are working with other people, other stakeholders and teams, and you're trying to convince them why they need to invest more, why they need to work more. So the main things I want to talk about, so there's the two main points. So first one is save time and money. A lot of the times you get the excuse of, oh, we don't really have the budget for UX, we don't have the budget for design. But using good UX methodologies and design practices can actually save you a huge amount of time and money. So there's so much, as I was saying, with UX, you've your user research use cases, personas, journey maps, and all these sort of methodologies can help you save so much early on in the project and get things much, much earlier. So according to Dr. Susan Weincheck, she's a UX psychologist, developers spend about 50% of their time reworking on projects. And that's because they're constantly having to deal with technical debt. They're constantly having to fix bugs and change things as it accumulates. And the more that you can catch early on in the design, the better. So Roger Pressman, his book, Software Engineering Practitioner's Approach, he talks about if you want to fix a design or an issue in a design process, it can cost you $1. After that, you'll be spending about $10 in the development stage, and that same thing to fix it after you've released it and it's in production can cost you $100. So you can see a 1 to 100 scale. IBM, similarly, they said something, but probably code fix costs about 30 times more than correcting in the first place with UX practices. So that is the main point, the amount of money that you can save by catching things early with, wireframes and prototypes. And in my experience, I've had times where developers in their agile processes, they're going off, they're building their little tickets, and then when they come back, it comes back after a 2-week sprint, and suddenly the client is going, what's this? This isn't what I asked for. This isn't what I want. This, and when you're just working to an individual ticket, you mightn't catch that as a developer. You mightn't catch that as a QA because the acceptance criteria, it works. But it's the whole bigger picture. And getting that with some InVision templates or even low fidelity post-it notes, drawing on it, you can save so much money compared to having to do it in code and production later on. So the second point is you actually make more money. So I'll show another quick video of some user research here. Should give you a good idea. Hopefully there's sound.
Don't think we're getting any sound on that. It's always good to watch The Simpsons, though.
I don't know. Did that work? I don't know if the audio worked.
No sound,
No.
sorry, but
Oh, well, that's disappointing. Luckily I wrote the code anyway. If you didn't know the scene, as Homer says, if something's hard to do, then it's not worth doing. And that is what your users think. If something is difficult to use, why bother using it? They're just going to give up. Especially in e-commerce, but in anywhere where you have a user who needs to use something, you need to make it easy. You need to be empathetic to the user. But significantly, if you're in e-commerce, it's a huge, huge deal. According to BMR UX research, 69% of all e-commerce visitors abandon their shopping cart. So the 69% of all of your visitors are abandoning them. Like that's 60% of your revenue that you're losing. And the number one reason they've reported why they abandoned the shopping cart wasn't price. It wasn't anything else. It was bad user experience going through the cart. That's why you need that. That's why Amazon have the one-click purchase. This is why on websites you have your PayPal button or your Apple Pay, where you can quickly and smoothly do it. You don't want to be giving your details every time because that you've typed in a million times your name and your address, and you're having to go and dig at your wallet and find the number at the back of the card. And loads of people just give up at that stage. So making huge decisions on your UX can make a massive difference. There's was a 2016 study by the Future of Design, this company NEA. They studied 408 different companies and sort of arranged them into how much they focus on UX design, and the highest level of UX, the investment, they refer to them as design unicorns. And the design unicorns saw their sales increase by 75%. So you can see here the design leads to the higher sales, higher customer retention, higher customer engagement, and faster product sales. So it's saving them money and it's making them money. Same with, there's this organization called the Design Management Institute, and they created a sort of tracking value called the Design Value Index. And they tracked 16 different publicly held companies that met all this criteria to basically that they focused on good design and good UX. So you can see all the big companies: Apple, Coca-Cola, Ford, Herman Miller, IBM, Nike, Starbucks. And consistently, these companies that invested more in design performed much, much better in the stock market in terms of revenue. It's just simple fact that the better your UX is, the better you're going to do for your customers and for your users in general. There's also other additional things like UX gives you better SEO as well. So Google's going to rank your page higher. In terms of investment, Forrester Research found that for every dollar invested in UX brings back $100 in return. And that's an ROI of 9,900%. You're not going to find many things. So it's interesting when you look, it's trying to shift the whole perspective of design is not just making things look really pretty, and actually has a massive, massive impact on your business. So customers are going to come back if they liked your product. They're going to tell their friends. They're going to, tell everyone about it and share it and, spend money. They're not going to spend money if they don't like it. A survey this year on a report said that customer experience is going to overtake everything in the next 3 years. Is going to be the biggest part of everything. If you look at a company like Airbnb, they got huge because of great UX. You had verified photos instead of just stock photos. People were verified so that you couldn't to reduce risk of fraud, and that you can trust everyone. Superhost badges to help find good ratings and all that sort of thing gathered together to create a great user experience. And their CEO admitted that the UX was pivotal in the value of their company. So I'll just leave it that with the Ralph Speth, CEO of Jaguar Land Rover, said if you think good design is expensive, you should look at the cost of bad design. And that's the big thing. If you don't invest at all, you're losing out on this massive potential. Envision, when they were researching into the UX design on their white paper, said that globally, not investing in UX is losing billions of dollars every year. And e-commerce alone, and it's essentially $1 trillion issue of not having good user experience. So, yep, that's essentially me. If you keep it's going to continue trying to argue that, and hopefully, I wasn't just spitting out stats and to you, and you can take away something useful, some sort of tidbit that you can go to your manager, your stakeholder, and to argue why you need some sort of better, more investment in design. And hopefully you don't build another Winchester mystery house with a load of unnecessary rooms. You can get and your users don't get lost in it. So yeah, thanks very much. You can catch me on Twitter at Dermot Hughes. And yeah, any questions or anything, give me a shout in the chat. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dermot. Yeah, I agree. I don't like the look of that house. It looks like you might get a bit lost. And so yeah, one of the questions come through in terms of small business. Obviously, a lot of small businesses have websites and, you know, limited budget and that type of thing. Is there anything you would advise, top tips of what the most important things they could do to improve the UX on their own websites?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it, like, post-it notes. I forgot where my camera was. Post-it notes are not expensive. Markers are not expensive. I think people sort of don't appreciate just how cheap and how easy it can be getting whiteboards and post-it notes and just drawing out low fidelity mock-ups and literally mapping out like customer journeys and getting an idea. I've had in the past working with a development team where we had worked for months on a project with me trying to convince why we needed to work more on actually getting the whole flow mapped out. And we sat down one evening with whiteboards and just drew out wireframes. And one of the senior developers was like, why have we not done this before? It makes so much more sense. And, you know, one evening could potentially have sorted out months of an entire team of developers. So you're talking tens, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds.
And I know you sit between the two in terms of you've got design background, but you actually develop. So have you got any kind of hints and tips in managing that relationship? Because obviously quite often, you know, you can shoot for the stars when you want design, but actually developing it might be a bit more challenging. So kind of managing that.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of a position I've been in a lot because, yeah, designers can often make life absolute hell for the developers when they when they want to. I think it's a good idea. I mean, obviously I spend most of my time trying to convince developers why there's good design, but sometimes it works the other way around. A little bit of basic development knowledge. I'm not saying that designers necessarily need to go to learn how to code, but a sort of very high level overview of how certain technologies work and talk to each other can be really, really useful. Because if you have at least a very, very high level of like how an API talks to the server or how it gets some data back, you can have a much better idea of how a UI can work.
Cool. We've got a question from you in regards kind of your career in terms of UX and UI. Later on, Chris is going to talk a wee bit about his School of Design, so I might come back to that question if you're happy enough. But no, it was a great presentation, Dermot. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for kind of explaining it in layman's terms. That's for some of the non kind of technical founders and entrepreneurs here. It's really valuable. So thank you. David, who's up next?
So Emma's up next, and it's good to see Mr. Murphy's joined the room as well. So we've got 4 speakers, it's definitely tonight. And Emma, do you want to jump in and share your screen? Yes. Hi, Chris. How's it going, man? Emma, do you want to jump in and share your screen, and then I'll give you a wee introduction?
Yep. Let's hopefully I get the right. You see that okay?
Happy days. Yeah, it's definitely the most colourful presentation, and it's only the first slide. So
very dark here in my room as well.
Looking forward to it. Emma is, I've known Emma for a long time. We actually met each other at Farset Labs in Belfast, and then we were both doing the Cooler Dojo there. So we both ran a Cooler Dojo for kids of San Diego and that back in the day. So not only is Emma like very much into UX design, she's very much an established front-end web developer and knows how to code, and has been in the industry for quite some time. So Emma's currently working for Nico. I always pronounce that wrong, but hopefully that's right this time.
Yeah,
and,
that's how I said it.
They're also based in Weaver's Court, similar to Farset Labs. So maybe she just left Farset Labs and went over to Nico and got herself a job working there as a lead UX designer. So she's doing very well for herself. But she's working there for 4 years and has been focused on UX and web development. So Emma, if you want to take us away and start it.
Yep, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, as David said, I've currently worked for Anico as UX lead. Anico is a small company. It provides a range of services, data optimization, analytics, and then we work as a team to build this data into visualizations for different user needs, dashboards, all that kind of stuff, just depending on what the user needs. There's a mix of, you know, we've done apps, we've done small proof of concept projects, we've done for public sector, private sector. So there's a whole real range of projects that we work across. So I have been with Inigo for just over 4 years, and today I wanted to look at the different traits of a UXer or colors of a UXer that I find, and how these different traits are highlighted maybe across these different projects. So some traits come out a little bit more as you jump into different types of projects. So I will start. How do we move on? That's good, works. So one thing that everyone probably thinks of a UXer is good communication, and the UXer's ability to work with a variety of people and different groups across a lot of different projects. But one thing I wanted to bring out was finding the right way of communication and what is the best type of communication for each of these scenarios. An example across projects that at Inigo we do work remotely most of the time, and have before with a lot of our projects with teams around the world and customers around the world. But I'm sure everyone feels very familiar with remote working now, and we're all trying to get into the way of communicating and trying to get around the distributed teams that we have all over the world. So some things that I have found when working with remote teams, and in design specifically, because it's hard to get that one-on-one communication that you might be used to, but working with remote teams previously and now I do it a lot more, is doing a lot of communication through your tools like Slack and Messenger and video calls, using a lot of ticketing systems for design, so tracking the design tasks and recording all the details within those tasks. So you might feel like you're writing down a lot of extra stuff, but actually getting that really detailed documentation in there really helps people that can't see you face to face, you know, try to understand the designs and take it all in. And that documentation to explain the process even of how you're going through the design process, the ideas and the final decisions as well. I think that was one thing I learned, was you might have lots of nice wireframes and workflows and stuff, but have a final decision document of what was decided and discussed and decided upon as your final feature or, you know, new design idea. And making use of all your tools, Scratch, Adobe, Abstract, and Collaborate, you know, to be able to easily collaborate and share with all the teams. Also video, I mean, all those tools I've used a lot is like videoing wireframes and stuff even, so you can just send across little videos of the interactions and the user flows that someone's going through, so someone can get quite a good idea, that interactive, just through wireframes of they click on this and it goes through here. It's before you go to that you know, build stage and even that prototyping stage of just videoing through wireframes and communicating on that way. So I think making good use of the tools, communicating through every step of the design, and including this detailed documentation means you can just continually gather feedback at every stage. So you can move design forward in a slightly different approach rather than the, you know, the nice face-to-face workshops and brainstorming and stuff that we like. It gives a good communication through this more remote working. So then another trait that I think that UXers have is that they're quick to adapt. So moving from a lot of, you know, different projects, in and out of projects and different scenarios, I think being quick to adapt is quite a good, maybe hard sometimes, but it's a trait I find I have to try and do a lot myself. So I think we have like a curious attitude, and we want to go in and try and solve problems, and it's good going in with that mindset of trying to solve the problems and getting fully immersed in a project so that we can find the best solution for it. So one example for me was I worked on a project that was a clinical trial simulation software. It had very complex user journeys, and requirements. And one thing, like I don't know clinical trials, I don't know the data they were working for, I had no idea about, you know, doing drug simulations and all that kind of stuff. So it was very, very brand new to me. But going in, and although not so available now, but moving on site into their workspace was really something that helped me adapt and fully immerse into their world. So you were with the users, you could understand their goals and get involved with their teams to find the solution. Then you had users at hand as well. So you could, you know, they were there to ask questions, gather research from, you could do quick brainstorm sessions with them, and you were constantly gathering feedback, which was very useful in that it's even, they would say random terms or different terminology and words. And it's just being in that environment to pick up any of those words or any complaints that they had as they were doing their work. You could just quickly note it down and get all that information straight away. It also gave, when you're in their environment and as they're working through their systems, it allows you to see external factors that might be annoying them as they're trying to use a feature. So they might be trying to work through this workflow of setting up a new project within the tool, but then other member of staff comes along and bothers them and stuff. So you're like, well, how often does that happen a day? Does it, you know, phone calls, all that kind of stuff. So it allows you to see what external factors are affecting their day-to-day work that will affect how they use a feature, or if they get interrupted in a feature, you know, you need to put in little additions to help them work around that, so that they can get to their end goal. And then I think another trait that's quite good is being analytical. And it's not only a sense of you're tracking, gathering data, quantitative research, but also asking yourself questions like, is this the right way? Can we make it better? How does the user feel? And that it's okay to be wrong. That's something that it's like always ask, you know, is this the right way to do it? And if it's no, that's okay. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, look at the bigger picture, find the best solution for the user, and try not to get stuck on that single idea. And an example that I went through, and as a team we went through within Inico, was a product service clarity. It was a KPI reporting tool, and it had been around for a few years. There's been a lot of different people working on it and different things happening with it. So we had to take a step back. We had to ask ourselves questions and analyze the data that we had for the previous product, and just say, look, is this the right thing? Is it working? We need to take a change in direction because it's maybe not working right now. So by analyzing the workflows, drop-off points, and user needs, we did adjust service clarity, and the team did well. We had to really be strict on ourselves and say, no, we don't need it. Strip it out, simplify it, refine it, and reassess what the user goals were. And in the end, doing that, it did, you know, we achieved, you know, the business goals. We got more customers, we made more money, and it was just getting that continual improvement with it. And through all that of asking questions and saying no to stuff as well, that it wasn't right what we had before, we're going to start again and try a different approach. And then another trait, I think, is exploring. And exploring is all part of design. It's especially in projects where you need to be a bit innovative and new products are being created. So we explore and understand problems, we generate ideas, we're brainstorming and researching to try and find user needs. So we go in all different paths to try and find what a user needs from a new product. And in Inico, we've done a few projects like this, where we haven't found our users yet. We're building new products, so that we need to get the team together to find what we have. The data, we have really good data, and we think it will be really insightful, but we don't know who the users are, and we don't know in what way they want to use it. So we get the entire team's involved in the process and everyone becomes comfortable in the entire process. We sit everyone down, we do the UX journey, and we get researchers, design, marketing, sales, engineers, management, stakeholders, everyone down together to rapidly generate ideas, wireframing and prototyping, get it in front of users. And also, again, it's okay to be wrong. Scrap the ideas that aren't good, throw them away. You've only done quick prototypes, you've only done quick wireframing. So try again, and then you'll hit something that works and you're like, actually, these users are starting to engage with this and feel that they would really use it. So I quite like the exploring ones. You can get really creative. And when you do follow the design process, then you do find how many wide variety of ideas and possibilities come out. So you get a whole heap of ideas and possibilities from the design process and getting creative, and then you hone in on the ones that the users are reacting to and there's a need for them. So then also within an eco, this is maybe something just my own personal experience within an eco is it's a small company. I currently do all the UX processes throughout an eco. So for me, it's really encouraging the team and the entire company to bring in those UX processes, and I'm documenting them more and sharing them more, and trying to get across that the importance of UX design, getting people involved in workshops and talks and really embedding the process into everyone's work environment. So, and I think that's one thing to think of too, is like to continue to encourage everyone to think about the user as the forefront. And it's not just the design teams as well. It is the engineers, the marketing, the sales, because it's all tied together, and if it's all for the user. So if everyone has the user in the front of their mind and UX as a process to follow in front of their mind, then everyone's working to the same goals, and it is beneficial. So that is all. That was a quick spin through. Probably did it in less time than I thought. But so if anyone has any questions.
Thank you so much, Emma. I mean, I don't want to say jack of all trades, but you've got an awful lot of skills under one, job title. Everything from communicator to analytics to exploration and influencer. So it's really interesting that you're kind of applying those softer skills to your role and kind of leading the stakeholders on that journey. So I suppose just kind of touching on that a bit more. How do you, is there any one of those skills kind of comes out most? Would it be communication, or is there anything out of that you feel you're kind of using out of your toolkit the most?
Yeah, I think it maybe is the communication one, even in a sense of that, maybe the influencer of getting teams together, doing the post-it notes, doing the whiteboard, sketching out, and getting the whole team together to do that stuff, to see what we can bat out together, and trying to get all the teams to generate ideas too, so that I'm not just the idea, and then people do, when they get really into it and they get artistic and all as well, when they've never, they've never drawn on a whiteboard before, and they're like, oh, actually it's quite nice to sit down and, and think about it from the very start, and not someone telling you, oh, put this here, put that there. So I think that's been my favorite part of it, and it's been a good to see the team and all in an eco getting involved in it as well.
And there's a lot of comments coming through in terms of getting on site. Everybody thought that was very valuable. I assume that's kind of more from like an agency viewpoint or whatever, design house coming in and helping the user. Would that be a project that you've done that? Is it a time bound that you come in and you've only got a certain amount of time, so you have to kind of get as much information as possible?
Yeah, so that one specifically was a 3-week project. So it was straight in. There's the user groups, there's the users get the research, and it was a whole. They had a platform idea, but they didn't know how to go for it, and they wanted to release it, to customers. So it was really getting all the user research, user flows right through to high fidelity designs then at the end of the 3 weeks. So that was it. Really it did need to be on site. I'd find that very hard to do remotely now. Just the topic of the software that they needed to was so detailed and intricate that it really did benefit being on site at that time.
Yeah, it's a lot to do in 3 weeks, but they obviously did very well. Guys, any other questions there for Emma, or if you've any comments or any of the projects that Emma's worked on, I'm sure you can touch base after. So thanks, guys. David, who's up next?
Next up is Mr. Murphy, Christopher Murphy there. If you want to start sharing your screen, we can get the test, your screen to start. So maybe if you want to just try and share there and see if we can get going. And I'll do a quick introduction while that's happening. If you're there, say hello.
Hello, I'm here. Can you actually give me 2 seconds and I'll chat amongst yourself just for a second? I didn't realize, I thought I was on in a wee minute. And I'm just making some slides. Everything is a prototype.
That's all right. How long do you need?
I just need a few seconds here and then I'm ready to go.
Well, this is a good opportunity. Does anyone want to unmute and just say hello? While
yeah, do that. And then I'll be just a few seconds, right? So go.
But a few people from America, like San Francisco and Colorado and New York, if you just want to say hello to some Northern Irish people. Is there anyone else from outside of Northern Ireland?
Hi guys, you're very welcome. And if you've got projects that you want to share or you want to get feedback on, this is the sort of group that you can connect with after and share for feedback, because obviously fresh eyes always helps. And it's we had a question from Erin kind of on the UX and UI kind of career as a student from with a degree in history and trying to move into that space. It can be challenging, and I think you're based in America there, and so kind of that journey. If any of the guys that have spoken, either Emma or Dermot or Louise, want to say how you got into UX. Did you go the traditional degree and get placement, or how do you get in after you've already done your degree? Any thoughts?
Well, for me specifically, I didn't study in UX. I didn't study tech or anything. I went fine art. So, and it's quite similar. It's, an academic subject, but I genuinely think the way I got, well, obviously my passion lies with people. So and my husband's a developer, so it was like a sort of natural progression for me. But if you want to get into UX, the main way that I learned was through doing. So if you find yourself a project, like do it, even if it's something to do with what you love, if it is to do with history or, I'm not saying that you love history, even if you have a degree in it, but if it's something to do with it, make a project, make a website about that, or make an application that allows people to use that sort of thing. I learned through doing, and I know Chris, he has a lot of online resources that are available there for you, but there's so many things out there. But for me as well, doing is the most important part, and just getting started, because everybody has to start somewhere, so you might as well just go for it and figure out what you like, trial and error and everything, so yeah.
Awesome.
I think I'd add to that. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
You go for it, Dermot. I'm just
I was just gonna add to that. I mean, it's quite a good industry to sort of get into, because UX design as a sort of title, as a job role, as an industry as a whole, it's quite new. There isn't really many degree courses, university courses existing at the minute, so there isn't the expectation that you need to have it. You can learn everything just from online, from resources, from books, and just doing it.
Brilliant. And Emma, how did you get into it?
On mute there, sorry. I did interactive multimedia design at Ulster. So, I split them, and that was a while back now. So, and it was learned a lot of stuff there that don't use now at all, even in developing and stuff. So I first went into sort of front end development, but then within that role, it just kind of came up, and that you know, and then started to hear about user experience and UX, and it started to come out just online and stuff even more. As people said, it started to become more of a people were looking into it and studying it, and there was more stuff coming out about it. So I just started to, you know, read a bit more up on it and look into what it was and what people were doing. And I think, I mean, the opportunity just came with the Nico, which was really good. It was a small company, and they were so they were helpful for me to get into it and let me run with it, you know, and let me, you know, go and learn and do short courses and stuff and learn about it and then implement it into projects and stuff. So I think it's really helpful to get into a company, or, you know, if you want to go that way, that will let you go and explore and learn new things as well. So that was kind of how it started for me.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I mean, I think there's, as you said, there's no one clear path, but hopefully that's a few hints and tips there, and definitely check out, you know, online courses. And I think Chris is going to talk a wee bit more about what he's up to from the School of Design as well. How are you getting on, Chris?
Yeah, I'm ready. Okay, sorry about that.
You're all right.
I'm literally making prototypes as we speak. So what I'm going to do, because my speakers don't work on the computer I'm doing the slides on, so I'm going to try and connect from two computers here, talk to you through here, present the slides on the other one. I don't know if this is going to work at all, because actually it's me on both of them, but she'll see here. So if I click on here and then I go like this here, allow, because I'm on a different Zoom here now.
Yeah, we had a presentation today a while back, and yeah, I think you do maybe need two different logins to show the two different screens. That's running on the other screen. There you are. Yep, that should work.
Yeah. That's okay. Give me 1 second.
Give me 1 second. I'm downstairs.
Okay, and then I'll do
it.
I was wondering, Jenny, if it would be okay if, as a complete novice who is stumbling through the process of building my website, I can maybe ask a question of Dermot, because I found his presentation really brilliant, and it really hit home to me that idea of all these little rooms being added on, and staircases and windows and bits and pieces, and I feel my website was a little bit like that. To give you a bit of background, Dermot, as an accountant, my passion in life is connecting businesses to each other and helping them to share information. And as part of that, I do a series of things. So I host events, I have video conversations that I share online. And also, if I'm asked a question as an accountant, when I research that, I'll post my research onto my website. And what's happened is that my website is built on Google Sites, which is probably inappropriate anyway, but it has grown to this thing where there's information all over the place. And I'm not sure that it's easy for people to come onto the page, find what they want easily, and interact in it in a good way. What are the basics, things, top of your head, I should be doing to fix that issue?
Well, there's nothing wrong with if you're learning. I didn't mention it during my slides, because the whole sort of story of the house is really, it's supposed to be haunted, and she was haunted by the ghosts of the ones killed by the Winchester rifles, and you know, all the ghost stories. But all of that obviously is nonsense. But it was actually just all made up by the press. She was actually an amateur architect. But she was a woman in the 1800s. She wasn't licensed. And so a lot of these projects were actually just her building. She had the money and she wanted to do architecture. So she was working in her own house. And similarly, when you're learning, there's nothing wrong with actually just building bits and pieces and actually just watching it expand. Everybody's, especially their first project, I'd say first project, every project expands with feature creep. I think at some stage, you need to just kind of scale back, actually see what's important, not specifically to you. Think of the user, like when they're going onto your website, what are they actually after? And really just trying to break it down into those simple flows so that you're not causing any sort of confusion. It can be like visual confusion on the screen. You're better asking some of the other guys here who are gonna know a lot more about the actual design than me. But I think there's nothing wrong with expanding out and learning, but because I mean I think everybody sort of does that. But I think that that's the main thing, is kind of breaking it down into what are the main sort of points. I'm not saying go off and delete all your work now. You don't want to get rid of that, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing something in Google Sites. Your objective is you wanted to get a website on the internet. You've got a website on the internet.
Hopefully that answers your question, Martin. Chris, how are you getting on?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, happy days. Share screen. Here we go. Okay, so sorry.
Okay, Chris. Welcome. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. So, for those of you who don't know Christopher Murphy, the international ones might not know who Christopher Murphy is. If you're local in Northern Ireland involved with the design scene, you most likely do know Christopher Murphy. He's been around the scene for quite some time. Some people might call him the godfather of the design scene in Northern Ireland. I met Chris a long time ago, probably at Refresh Belfast or one of the build conferences, where we used to chat at the front whenever we were having a few pints, and like he's always been quite a good influence. I was actually, like a lot of people who are designers in Belfast, they will have been taught by Chris. So I used to get always taught, are you an IMD student? And I was actually a student that studied up in McGee at Derry. So I was never privileged to actually get taught by Chris, but I've always been told that his lectures are actually amazing. And he's a world-renowned speaker. So again, just put out that we're very, very lucky to have him talk to us tonight. Tonight he's going to talk about everything as a prototype. So Chris, if you want to just jump in.
How do I manage to follow up that? Because that sounds amazing. It makes me sound amazing. Look, the first thing I want to do is apologize. That was a bit kind of like unprofessional of me. I should have been ready a little bit earlier. But I suppose that the honest truth is I'm just prototyping like a crazy person at the minute. I'm building things, I'm testing things. And today and this last week has just been nuts for me. I've launched a course. I've been dealing with requests, and I haven't even got the course written yet. I kind of have it written. It'll be ready. Episode 1 will be ready in a couple of weeks' time. I've outlined it all. I'm going to be teaching it to my students on Monday coming, this Monday, and then I'm going to teach it to other people the following Monday. And I'm just, building. I'm Failure on Twitter. I have a tendency to swear. I'm going to try really hard not to swear tonight. I'm going to talk about is the business of education first, right? Because I think it's really important to understand the business of what you're doing or wherever it is that you're working, the different sectors that you're in. The second thing I want to talk about is everything as a prototype. I kind of learned this from a guy called Chris Hammond, which was amazing. He really helped me to transform how I see the School of Design. As a prototype, it's not finished, and I don't think it ever will be finished. One thing I would say about that as well is that when your idea is a prototype and you think of it as a prototype and it's like version 1.6 or something, or even it's version 0.2 and you've only just started, right? That takes an awful lot of pressure off you because you feel like, well, this isn't a finished thing anyway. It's just a prototype. So we're going to learn some lessons, then we're going to make some changes, and then we're going to improve it. And whereas I don't know about folks, but I'd always had this kind of thing where as soon as it's released to the world, I feel like it's finished, and then I'm going to get judged and everyone's going to say that's a pile of shite, and then I'm going to get all depressed, So I've stopped thinking about my business or my startup as a finished thing, and I don't think it will ever be a finished thing. So the first thing is about the business of education. I've taught 10,000 students easily over the last 20 years. I spend a lot of time teaching real world lessons, not theory. I think it's really important that the people who teach you are actually involved in the thing that they are teaching you. There's an awful lot of people in universities who don't actually work in the industry that they're teaching about. Or maybe they did work in that industry, but they stopped working in that industry 10 years ago. I had a guy in Glasgow School of Art many years ago whose name was Jimmy Murray. And he was super nice, really nice guy, but he hadn't worked as a graphic designer for about 15 years. And so he didn't really know much about graphic design at that time because he hadn't been working in the industry. And Jimmy was a lovely guy, but his lectures were he was talking about a past world that wasn't in existence anymore, because around that time in the 80s, the computer had come out, the Macintosh was a kind of thing, and we were all using the Macintosh, but Jimmy had never used one. So he would tell us about stuff that was happening 10 or 15 years previous. I just found that frustrating. So I've also spent the last 20 years trying to bridge the divide between design and business. I think that these things shouldn't be taught separately. I think design should be taught with business, and business should be taught with design. It's so, so important. And I've spent a lot of time building startups. I wrote about the education space a couple of years ago for New Adventures. It's a conference in Nottingham. Back in the days when we could go to conferences, with the ongoing marketing, right? I think that what's happened in the last few years is education has become a commodity. Students have become consumers, education has become a commodity, and a degree is kind of the outcome of a transaction, which is very different to when I was a student. When I was a student, 4 years at Glasgow School of Art cost precisely zero, right? The government paid for it on the expectation that you would work hard, you'd learn some things, you'd earn more money because you were better qualified, and then you would pay more tax down the line. My daughter's just gone to Glasgow School of Art. She is paying £9,250 a year for that experience, which as a dad, I'm really concerned about that because she's spending a lot of money. Student loans lead to anxiety, stress, mental health, all these kinds of issues, right? But one of the other things I think that's really weird about university education is that, never mind the money, a lot of it doesn't stick. So when
Just breaking up a wee bit there.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Because the students aren't doing that at that moment in time, right? They forget it and it doesn't feel real. So my summer was Emma, Ryan, Jasmine asking to talk to me on Zoom, me going on Zoom and saying, yeah, we covered this in semester 1 of year 2, remember? And these students, Emma, Ryan, and Jasmine, are not stupid students. They work really hard. I'm actually employing Jasmine. That's how much I believe in her. And when I had to start to explain stuff to Jasmine, which I'd already covered for the students, I thought, God, this is crazy. Like, everything is so divorced from reality. So what I'm doing now in the School of Design is, let's take Daniel. I'm teaching him UX at the minute. So I've got somebody who needs some branding, Kieran, and I've said to Kieran, if you pay for Daniel to go on one of the courses that I'm running, it's only going to cost you 195 quid. And Daniel's going to learn all about branding by redoing your branding, building new brand guidelines, etc. Daniel is freaking out because he thinks this is just the most amazing opportunity ever. Then when I told him that Kieran was going to pay for him to go on my course, how to sell stuff on the internet, he was freaking out even more because he was like, how much cooler could this get, right? And I know that he will learn by doing. I wrote this over the summer, partly for Emma, who's in that thing there in the middle. She phoned me and she was working on a project with a client. She didn't really know what she was doing. So I wrote up these notes for her. And for me, one of the things that I find interesting is that a lot of lecturers who teach in art schools have never run a business. So that it's really difficult for them to teach business skills if they've never actually done business. One of the things I've been thinking about a lot over the last 6 to 7 months is the idea of unbundling. So if we think of a degree as a bundle, right? You're maybe in interaction design, you'll be learning some UX, you'll be learning some UI, you probably will be learning some business, you might be learning some selling stuff on the internet. There's a variety of different things that you're learning and you're paying for that bundle of education. And as a sort of thought exercise earlier, which is why I was running a bit late, I took the prices of what I would do, right? So the first thing I would say to a student would be, go get yourself Skillshare, okay? There's no point in me teaching you data visualization. Nicholas Felton's way better at that. So let's just use Nicholas Felton's stuff. And I will act as the voice of your conscience to say, how's that data viz stuff coming along? 'Cause there's no point in me doing it, right? And I will teach you all the fundamentals of design, and I will be the voice of your work. The next 9 months will be more like mentoring, right? Which is mostly what I do in the art school. Then if you want to learn sort of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, that kind of stuff, I mean, I wrote a book on that maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I wrote a book on building websites with HTML and CSS, but it's so not interesting to me. But Andy Bell's amazing, and he's doing some amazing stuff. He has this course on building sites in 11th, which is 160 quid. I would do that for sure. I was talking to Ruth earlier. She's really interested in lifestyle business startups, so she's going to do this course for 6 months. And then we've got the cost of Skillshare and the cost of YouTube, right? The total cost of the degree is £37,000. That's Dan. He's one of my students in Belfast in his final year. And if you were a student in Northern Ireland, you'd be paying £17,580. But if you came into the School of Design and you were taught by better people, right? There's no point in me teaching you HTML and CSS. Andy Bell would be much, much better at teaching you that. This would cost you £3,380. And you'd get it all done in around about a year, right? And then after that year, you would just pay £256 to be a member of the School of Design, stay in our Slack, talk to people. Every once in a while, I would chip in. You might want to come and have a mentoring session with me, and you would pay me £75. Or if you are Black, minority ethnic, or unemployed, you'd get a reduced rate of 50 quid for an hour, which would turn into an hour and a half, because I really like to talk, right? And instantly you'd be saving a ton of money and you'd be getting a better education. This email was sent to somebody, sent to my head of school over the summer. You know, as a graduate of Belfast School of Art, I wanted you to know, bring your attention to what I feel must be a serious conflict of interest. The email below implies that one of your members of staff is running an online course.
It's quite unbelievable, Chris, that somebody's come in with that. You're breaking up again there.
Yeah, and I spoke to my head of school and I said, that's actually not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is teaching purpose-driven, design-focused businesses. It's more of a master's course that I'm doing than really an undergraduate course. While I have graduated, I can only imagine what some of your current students or future applicants might say. If they see they can gain a similar education at a fraction of the cost, I'm thinking, bloody hell, isn't that brilliant, right? They won't have to go into debt. They'll get the same kind of education at a fraction of the cost. Like, this is marketing for me, right? So when I phoned my head of school and said, right, well, obviously going to need to jump on Zoom and talk about it, this was from my email to her at the bottom. If it is decided that there's a conflict of interest between what I'm doing in the School of Design and Belfast School of Art, I'm afraid I'm going to have to hand in my notice. And that's what I did on Jen. I was like, who wrote this, right? I can't believe that somebody would write this. And it's such a kind of, I just think it's such a depressing thing that somebody actually wrote to complain about this, when what we're actually trying to do is to help people learn for less money. Crazy. Everything is a prototype. There was this guy called Chris Hammond. He teaches design thinking at IBM. He is a friend of mine. On Ignite, which I have been on, I think it's a competition for Raise. I'm not 100% sure actually what's the deal there, but I've been on Ignite for 6 months, right? They are really into, you know, I'm sure Raise is the same, right? Build stuff, try it out, etc. The first week or two on this program, it was like Chris McLeod and Ian Brown, who are amazing, were like, you know, where's that stuff, Chris? Where are you doing it? It was great. I was actually having the voice of the conscience, someone else for a change. One of the conversations I had when I was working on this was with a guy called Chris Hammond. And he said, at IBM, everything is a prototype, even the business itself. And for me, this was just mind-blowing, because I thought, well, you know, I was like, well, of course. And he said, yeah, but even IBM is a prototype. And when he started to talk about it as like the business was a prototype, it really sort of like a grenade blew off in my head. And I just thought, this is a really interesting idea. So I can release anything, try it, and see how it goes. So I don't know if any of you have heard about the design thinking kind of methodology, and this is kind of like the double diamond. So if you've never seen this before, Google double diamond design council. So at the beginning of the project, we have the discover phase. It's like, what are we building? Who are we building it for? What are we trying to build? And at this point in time, we're trying to work out what is the problem that we're trying to solve. Because sometimes people will come along and say, the problem we're trying to solve is bananas.
Just breaking up again there, Chris.
At the beginning,
Got
this
you
is
back.
what worries me slightly about teaching from home. At the beginning, we have the diverge thing. Then we know the problem is coconuts. We start to come back down, and then we open up again as we start to design different kind of layouts and mobile apps and all that kind of stuff. And then we converge, we deliver the thing, right? No code is amazing. This was the slide I was making when you guys were like, it's Chris next. And I was like, shit. Right, so noticed is the top left. I use that to share all of my slides, okay? And here's another reason that I'm getting annoyed about the art school, because, you know, the students contacted me last year and they said, can we all use Notice because it's way better than Blackboard? And I went to my colleagues and said, look, folks, we're teaching interaction design. I think we should use Notice and not Blackboard. And I was just told flat out, no, forget it. Blackboard's what we use. We have to use Blackboard. So we were actually trying to say to the students that we should give them a worse student experience because the university had invested in a platform that's not very good. So I use Notice for the slides. Notion, I get so confused between Notice and Notion. Notion is what I'm using for the content, right? This is like books, okay? And then Gumroad is what I'm using at the minute, not forever, just at the minute for selling stuff, right? Because I've used Gumroad before and I know how to use it. Twitch possibly might be a thing we might use instead of Zoom. I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. But maybe that would be interesting. I tried Mighty Networks for a while. It's like a really useful community building tool, but I didn't really like the way that the UI was designed, the user interface. And then the thing that's at the back there with the guy holding up his hand is a piece of software called Playgroup. So throughout the process for the last 6 to 8 months, I've been trying things out. And for a while I was like, if you where it says community plan and business plan, for a while I was like, right, we're using this tool. It's called, Mighty Networks, and it's going to be amazing. And then within about 2 weeks, I was like, Mighty Networks is shit. We're moving on to Playgroup, you know, because I'm trying stuff out and I'm seeing what people like to use. One of the other things that I think is interesting from a university perspective, but just from a business perspective, is speed to feedback, right? In a university, we would get a course agreed, like designing a product almost. We would design a product, we spend a lot of time building it, and then we would stick with that product for 5 years until we redesigned the next version of that thing, right? Just from a product design point of view, that's absolutely bonkers. What we should be doing is we should be building something, testing it, and changing it the next year. So if something doesn't work, like Mighty Networks has some issues, then we'll abandon that and we'll move to a different tool. So this kind of idea of speed to feedback is super important. When I look at this slide, I'm almost kind of embarrassed actually. This was when I got Notion and started with Notion, and I was like, Notion is interesting, it looks really cool. But I wasn't really a big Notion like fan or anything, and you know, I put a little wavy hand in there because apparently that's what the kids do. They use the emojis. And you can see over here where it says like shared and private and stuff. That was my very first file in the library at the School of Design about product storytelling. And there was just one thing, right? And that was on the 19th of February, right? And when I look at the 25th of June, there's tons of stuff. There's like the School of Design, there's a section on life, there's a section on work, there's a section on marketing. There's like tons and tons and tons of stuff in Notion. And what it's made me change how I think about teaching. And it's all just because I've been trying things out and not worrying too much about being finished and just thinking about this being a journey of experiments through prototypes. So what we're trying to do, I think, at the School of Design is build a community, think about all the content, which is in Notion, and then think about the curriculum. So David, maybe your curriculum would be different to Emma. Emma's curriculum might be different because you went on IMD, so you don't need to know some of this stuff, so you need to know this. Martin Gilchrist, you would need to know something different because you've gone on a different path, and we just had you asking the question, so there's probably some stuff in here that you could read, right? Oh, sorry, these fades are dreadful. So the three things that we're pulling together is the community, right? That's peer support. And that's accountability. That's where I'll be saying, hey, whoa, where's all that work that you're supposed to be doing? And we're using at the minute Slack and WhatsApp for that. The content, which is like the teaching and learning materials, that is currently using Notion and Playgroup. Notion is free, Playgroup is paid.
I just dropped out there. Hopefully we'll get Chris back. But here he is, coming back.
Hello.
Yep, coming back now. There you are.
Okay. Sorry. Oh man, I've said to the university, what are they going to do about my internet? Because I have to teach on Monday and Tuesday. And the answer to the question was nothing. No one has even looked at it. And I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? I have to teach on Monday and Tuesday. And if we're going to be sitting with people saying, getting him back now, no, we've lost him, that's going to be a terrible student experience. So here's how I would fix that. And this is kind of like me live thinking on air, right? If it was me and this was the School of Design, I'd be getting straight on the phone to BT or to somebody and saying, fuck, I don't care what it costs, but we need some internet in here right now. And it needs to be super fucking fat pipes and all kinds of shit because we're pushing video out here, etc. So I don't care about the cost, bring it in. The way that works in the university is kind of, woo, let's hope for the best, folks, right? I asked about the budget there, but nobody seems to know, right? And I think that that's an absolute disgrace. You know, I can say all this stuff now because I've handed in my notice, so they can sack me if they want, right? But I'm already leaving. I think that if we're moving towards teaching everything using the internet, we need to be investing in all of this kind of stuff, right? We need to be buying this equipment for people. And so it's mental, right? Anyway, let's think about the prototypes. One of the moments that everything just fell into place for me was when one of my students, a guy called Dylan, said, could you tell me how to write an email newsletter? What would be your strategy? And we were on DMs in Slack, right? And I said, Dylan, a better approach for me, rather than answering this question here, would either be to do a talk for you or to share all of this in the main general channel of the Slack, because then I can answer your question, but everyone else can benefit from it. And he was like, yeah, that's totally cool. So instead of answering it in DMs, which is what I was doing, and I was, I was repeating a lot of work. This is where I had this kind of idea of like the one is me, okay? I'm sharing stuff. If I'm sharing something with, just on my computer, right? And not sharing it with anybody, it's like 0.1, right? It's not much. If I'm sharing with Dylan, it's like 1 times 1 because it's all in DMs, okay? If I'm putting it in the general channel in the Slack and we have around about 100 people, well, I'm sharing that information with 100 people, right? Much better use of my time. And if I'm putting it out onto the internet, then I'm sharing it with, well, not an infinite number of people, but a lot more people. So what I've been trying to do is like move stuff out of my brain into the world so other people can access it. Remember that slide that we saw a while ago and it just said product storytelling and it talked about Kara's work and it was the one page in February, right? This is what the library looks like now. There's the School of Design, there's some stuff on learning and how we learn. There's some first principles, there's life, there's work, there's managing your time, there's branding, there's content design, there's social media, there's stuff about Twitter, there's a whole bunch of stuff about mailing lists. This is all the kind of stuff. So here where it says mailing list, this is kind of where Dylan was saying, can you tell me about mailing list? And I'm like, yep, let's just write that and put it there, right? So here's some of the draft content from, goodness, this is June. So, there's pricing and positioning. So selling your work, because that's kind of important. There's a whole chunk of stuff on no-code tools, because I think no-code tools are really interesting. There are beacons. Those are companies that I think we can learn from. There's required reading. So there's some reading lists. There's shared reading notes. That, I read a book and I share my notes on it. The time section is super important. It's on managing your time. If we go into marketing, right, and this is really old content. This is from around June. This is content marketing, social media, PR, and testimonials, okay? And then if we click on content marketing, the top one, we go in here, we now have social, like getting started with social media, okay? Show and tell, which is sharing social strategy for Design Track. Change the name. It's now the School of Design. Everything is a prototype, right? We started with the name Design Track, and over time, it just didn't feel right to me. And then I bought the schoolofdesign.com for like a reasonable amount of money, but it wasn't free. It cost me quite a bit, but it was worth it because it's way better than Design Track. We've got social post live on, we've got portfolio site, we've got
I think I've lost Chris again there. There's all content that the students can get access to. It's, you know, fascinating that your UX and design is even tipping into the marketing world. It's great that the two kind of tie together.
Well, yeah, is that you, Jenny, that just said
Yep.
that? Yeah, so look, I don't see there as being a boundary here. You know, I don't see there as being designers here and marketing is over here and business is over here and something else is over here. These things are all contained. And this is where, when we had the conversation with my head of school, the student who'd written the thing saying, oh, he's giving away the education far too cheap. I was like, this is not really what we're doing. What we're doing here is much bigger than interaction design. What we're doing is more like a master's. It's much, much more, it's covering much more ground. But these are all the things you need to know to build a startup and to be successful, right? And this is like everything I've learned in the real world for 30 years, right? The cost of access to all of this stuff. So if we just go back and we say, you know, we've got all these sections, we've got the marketing section, we've got the subsection on content marketing, and then we've got all the articles, right? The cost of access to all of that is zero, okay? We want to share that information with as many people as possible, okay? Why? Because once you get in the library and you start to see the content, you start to realize that you need a navigator. You need someone like me to tell you, read this first, then go and read that, then read this next thing. And so what I'm really selling is mentorship. You know, so if you want to jump on a mentoring call with me, it's around 75 quid for an hour and a half. Or if you have a good reason, it's 50 quid for an hour and a half, something like that. And guaranteed in that meeting, I'll say, you need to go and read this. Or have you considered this, and go and read that. And if, Jenny, for example, you were to say to me, I need a blah, 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 and it wasn't in the library, I would write it for you and then I would put it in the library. So that you could refer to it, but it would, other people would benefit from it. Just, it's like open source, right? It just feels like a better method for me. So we teach design times business. We teach the transfer of value. We don't teach the transfer of value away from designers. One of the things I find as a designer is that people come and ask me to build startups for them. I solve a lot of problems for them as a designer, and then they bugger off and make millions of pounds, and I make nothing other than my fee. So I'm very interested in us building our own startups. So maybe I'll be competing with Raise and Propel and all of that kind of stuff. But I honestly believe we can all work together more effectively, actually. Selling value, not time, is huge for us, right? If you come and spend an hour with me in a mentoring session, I mean, I can't sell that hour again to somebody else because it's gone. Whereas if I was to use that hour instead to build, say, a content system or a plugin for WordPress or a set of icons or a course, I can sell that multiple times. On the theme of prototyping and design is everything is a prototype, you know, it was design track. This was my pitch deck for getting into Propel. It was all about supercharge your UX career, that kind of thing. Now it's even changed from that. In a way, if you've been on a startup thing like Raise or anything like that, you'll have known that your pitch will change all the time. That's kind of like everything is a prototype thinking. It's kind of like, this is the version now, but it'll change tomorrow. We used to say aspiring self-starters, but I think designers is more where we are. We're now a community for design-focused entrepreneurs building the businesses of tomorrow. So prototyping prices at the start, this is so important, I think. At the start, I had 8 people, and I just tweeted and put out a call and said, if anyone wants to learn from me about design, UX, that kind of stuff, pay me 300 quid. I don't know what I'm teaching you, but I will teach you for life, okay? And this was kind of a bit bonkers because people didn't really know what they were getting. But I got 8 people who signed up, 6 paid me 300 quid. Dermot is one of them. And it's awesome. Like, I have loved Dermot and I jumping on, having chats and all kinds. It's so exciting, right? And I was like, and we haven't finished, Dermot. We've still more ways to go, right? And you might be looking at it and thinking, what's that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. That's 300 quid.
You might be thinking that £300 is absolutely nuts, right? It is totally nuts. But what I wanted to do was get
Oh,
Hope we had better internet connection when he was chatting to Dermot.
Yeah.
What was that?
I mean, I think it's fascinating to kind of see the difference, you know, again, as you say, about spinning the design into the business world and then into the opportunity. And you only need to learn one or two things, take 2 or 3 steps forward, you know.
100%. So I learned a ton from the £300 beta learners. The other thing I would say is you could have tried this for people for free, like say, hey, I don't, you know, come and work with me for nothing. It's not the same. People are very motivated when they pay money. And I think most people who've been on the 300, what am I saying? Most people, all of the people on the £300 program have they've had a life-changing experience. And if they haven't had a life-changing experience yet, they're definitely going to have one soon. But it's been really helpful for me, those 300 people. This is, over here, it says the private library. This content is the stuff that's going to go on to Playgroup. This is not the content that I'm sharing on Notion for £0, because some of this is me being a little bit more honest with you. I'm not lying on the other stuff. It's more like I'm talking about my pricing and I'm sharing a lot of real stuff that no one would ever share. And it's just, I'm kind of opening my soul a wee bit more, and I'm not really prepared to do that on the internet for free. You know, so once you join the School of Design community, you know, we'll probably have a mentoring session and I'll say, go and read this. You can see my numbers. I'm sketching with numbers is what I would call it. You know, 12 times this many people. This is kind of interesting, I think, actually. It sort of zooms in here. At the start, I was like, okay, we're going to have a group of 12 people 4 times a year, right? And that's going to bring us in 86 grand, right? And then I was like, no, that's not going to work. It takes a lot of time. So I'm like, eight people 3 times a year. And they're going to pay more, 2,400. And then I was like, yeah, that's better, right? And it's a wee bit less money, but I'm still teaching 24 people. And now I'm kind of like, maybe it's 2 cohorts, 9 people twice a year. And they're paying 2,400. And yeah, I'm losing a bit, right? But I've got 6 fewer people to spend time with, right? So what I'm trying to do is just mess around with the numbers and see what works. We launched this on Monday. It's called Sell While You Sleep. So this is our first kind of proper course, I suppose. It's very practical. So we're going to do 12 one-hour talks on Monday evenings from 7 o'clock until 8:30. So we'll do a talk from about 7 to 8 like this, very practical, and then a half-hour Q&A, right? Then we're going to do 2 critiques on a Saturday. There'll be worksheets and stuff like that. There'll be case studies, talk recordings. We'll record the talks and share them, and then there's access to the slides and the notes. The normal price for that, for this 12-week course, which is live, I think, is like $495. Actually, I spoke to Ruth Gilby today, and I think it's too low for what we're doing. I think it needs to be higher than that. But we launched it at $195. You know, I had a guy who emailed me today to say, hey, Chris, I paid for the course the other night, and I just have decided that I just don't have the time in my life to do this right now. But, you know, so if you could give me a refund, that would be great. And I'll do it sometime, maybe next year. You know, I emailed him back and said, yeah, no worries here. You know, I'll give you the money later, but I have to get my stuff ready for this raise thing tonight. But a part of me is like wanting to say to him, dude, you are making a big mistake here, because, you know, if you come back next year, it's probably going to be like $1,000. You know, so the only way to get a feel for if the prices are right is to see, do people buy this stuff, and then think, okay, how do you feel when someone signs up for 5 hours of mentoring in a course for $595? Do you feel like that's a good thing? Do you feel like you've massively underpriced it? When I worked this out here, I wrote about this yesterday, and I said, okay, so the mentoring is £40 an hour. And I'm like, whoa, what the hell happened there? That's too low, right? But the only way you're going to learn it is by trying. And then I'm just throwing...
Prototyping in the prices then, you know, prototyping your prices, putting them out there, try them for a certain period of time.
100%. Yeah. I mean, look, most people wouldn't share this kind of stuff, right? And most kind of lecturers in art school or university wouldn't share this kind of stuff either. The reason they wouldn't share it is because they wouldn't know what it is. They would never have used Gumroad. You know, so, you know, it's like what Jenny said, it's like experiment, right? We have a community on Slack. You know, we've actually just in the last couple of
You're gonna love the university broadband after tonight. It keeps breaking up again.
Conversation.
Questions on mentorship and who
Wow.
mentors the mentor, Chris, as well. You touch
Is
on
that a
that?
question?
Yeah.
The mentor is me is the problem. The thing I'm doing next is training other mentors.
Yeah.
The problem I have at the minute is, as a mentor, I can massively accelerate your career for sure. But I can't be doing that for 1,000 people a year. So how do I scale that as a business? The answer, and you're probably not going to want to hear this on a startup type thing, is I don't really give a shit. I'm not trying to make a ton of money. I'm just trying to change lives right now. And if I was trying to make a ton of money, I wouldn't be sharing all the Notion stuff for free. And I certainly wouldn't be selling a 12-week live course with Q&A and crits, etc. for $195. It's far too low. But I'm doing it because I really want to change lives.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Louise says once her mentorship software is up and running, we can be using that to connect, your guys and
Brilliant.
Other mentors.
Brilliant. Get her to get in touch with me. That sounds great. Our long-term strategy kicking off in January, because I finished teaching on the 31st of December, because I was to leave in the middle of the semester, and I said to the students, like, I'm not going to do that to the students. That would be a real shitty thing to do. So I'm going to teach to the end of the semester, leave the university on the 31st, and then, I can go in to launch this thing next year and feel like I didn't let anybody down, because my students are super important to me. The business model for next year is there's like a kind of membership of the School of Design. There's access to workshops and guest lectures. We're going to have 2 seasons of content. So we're kind of using a Netflix model. So we'll have 2 seasons of content with different themes. We have the Slack community, which is starting to pick up speed. We have the private library that we talked about before in Playgroup, and some free stuff in Notion. And it's just like, will this work? I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that there must be 500 people, because that's like our cap. I'm pretty sure there must be 500 people in the world who want to start a business and who need to know about the intersection of design and business. Hopefully I'm right. That's my email in case anybody wants to get in touch about anything. If anyone's interested in the Sell While You Sleep course, seriously, I'll never be that price again. I'm not really selling. I think we've sold 10 of the 18 places, and there's a few people who are I know are booking, but just haven't got around to it yet. That course is like, do you know the reason I launched that course, Sell While You Sleep? It's like I was having a coffee with a friend, Caroline Smith. She's a UX designer, and she was like, I've had this idea for Smorb, which is her name for a business, for 7 years. And I said, but why haven't you done it, Caroline? She was like, I just need you on my case, Chris. No one's giving me shit. And I'm like, pay me and I'll give you shit, So, I mean, what a great strap line to end on. Pay me and I will give you shit and make sure you get stuff done. Change your life. Join us. We're doing this we're doing it to change lives, really. It's less about the money. That is me. I can now escape that, and I can open up this and see, is there any questions in the chat? Anything else?
I mean, to see kind of...
Martin Gilchrist, sorry. He would pay me 300 quid to leave him alone. Martin, we need a coffee. Sorry, Jenny, what was your question?
Yeah, no, I mean, coming from the design background and putting all that knowledge out there, it's a fantastic amount of effort and work, and it'll be really valuable for lots of people. And then as they see that small tokens of value, then they see the value in them paying. So it's kind of like not like a free trial, but it's kind of that incentive to bring them in the door, and it's typical lead generation, and to actually see the business mindset behind it. It's really interesting. But the building of the prototyping and the pricing, and it's something that all businesses go through, and you just have to put stuff out there and try it. So yeah, I mean, just obviously kind of in terms of the pricing model and the membership, be happy for you to share that with the guys once you've got it up and running. And
one thing I was going to say, well, I'd love to know more about who's building the mentorship product.
That's Louise. So she was one of our first speakers. Go ahead, Louise.
Oh, okay.
Yep, that's me. I'm yeah, I'm developing a product that like just helps people connect with each other and like learn and share experiences. And yeah, so it's I've designed it, but my husband, he's actually, if you want to come in, but he is hello, he is building it currently. So yeah, it's very much still in testing, and like we're like it's very evolutionary, but yeah, like I think this is recorded, so even Chris, if you want to like watch the video just on my presentation of it, like you'll probably get a wee bit more about it, but I've left a link in the chat as well about my portfolio, which gives you more sort of detailed explanation.
Right.
And this is Pepper, by the way.
Oh, my awesome dog. So cool. I mean, what I would say, Louise, is get users on that platform ASAP.
Oh, 100%, yeah, 100%. He is like obviously busy with work and everything, but he's the one developing it. So the designs are ready to go. I'm just like, come on, like get it done. But once it's out there, we'll obviously let people know, and like I'll post in NI design chat and like on Twitter and stuff when it's ready to go. But like I think it is a really useful and really meaningful platform that people can use, and not even just necessarily within workplaces, but like, you know, personally too. So yeah, I'm excited.
One of the other things I would add that I learned this afternoon, I was mentoring someone this afternoon, and he said, I mean, why would I pay £38 for a calendar app? And I was like, whoa, you know, like my time is my most valuable commodity. And if I can spend 38 quid on something that's going to take care of that for me, that's worth 38 quid. And I think one of the things that I've seen with the difference between students and the people who are here, right, is if you said to students, I think you need to spend 12 quid a month on a Calendly subscription, they would immediately go 12, 140. They go, there's no way I can afford that. And you'd be like, no, but think of the long term. You're going to make
many coffees that is,
you know. And I think the difference between students and all of us is we look at it and think, yeah, this is an investment in my future. And students, I don't mean to beat up on all the students, but a lot of students just don't see that. They just think that this is all just a degree and it's a piece of paper. And I'm like, we could be.
I've lost you again, Chris. Yeah, Calendly is a really good scheduling app that people, you can set the times that you're free and people can come on and then book meetings with you. It's really good.
Well, maybe that's a new feature within mentorship, that maybe like, you know, you can schedule like, you know, interactions with these people and stuff. So that's like a good thing to like follow up on as I continue the product.
Yeah, 100%. Louise, I don't do this offer normally because I really need to try and clamp down my time. I'll jump on a call with you for an hour for free.
Oh, sweet. Sweet to me. Sweet to me. Well, I'll connect you with you on Twitter and stuff, and we'll get it organized.
Just want to help everybody who wants to build a startup. That's my 100% goal. You know.
Thanks, Chris. That's
awesome. Awesome.
Any guys have any other questions? I'll jump in here and see. Martin was asking just in terms of the membership, obviously, of your School of Design. You know, are you going to be, is it just intake based, or are you going to be opening up membership, that type of thing?
So one of the things I'm doing with, if you give me a second, I'm just going to open Simple Note. Has anyone heard of Simple Note? No? Just, if you give me a second, I just want to show this actually from the point of view of everything as a prototype, right? Share my screen. Can you see this here? And it says fitness at the top. Fitness Plus, can you see that? This is an app called Simple Note, and you can write in here, right, in Markdown, and then you can click up here and you can publish this, right, to the web. So you can make a web page with it, right? I mean, this is literally lo-fi. There's nothing fancy about it. The beta learners, I think, Dermot heard through NI Design Chat, but a number of the other beta learners, like this one from Edinburgh and one from America, they heard by me writing here in Simple Note and publishing a web page, and it was really basic, right? So my website was, if I just share my screen, if I do this, publish. Oh, no, sorry, that one's already, let's take the, you're asking about the pricing model. So if I just copy this and then show you what it looks like in Chrome, okay? I basically wrote out my pitch and said, you know, 300 quid, I'll teach you for life, okay? It was literally as lo-fi as that. I wrote it over in Simple Note, I hit publish, and then I tweeted and said, if anyone wants to be a beta learner, go here, read the deal, and you know, you can sign up. And you know, I didn't even have a website, right? That's how everything is a prototype. This is. It's very prototypey, you know, and it's even, some people would even say this isn't even a prototype, right? It's like I'm testing assumptions as quickly as possible, right? And obviously you can't really, you know, you can't really test an assumption without a website as such, because the website would help to persuade people. But I think if you could get a bunch of people to sign up from something like this, you're proving that there is demand, right? To answer the question about the membership model, maybe Jenny, I'll give this to you and you can share it with people afterwards.
Yes.
So
I think it might be a few interested people watching, so you never know, you might get some more customers. That's great.
So at the top here, I've said you should be able to get to know everyone in the community. There's only going to be 512 members. The reason for 512 is like floppy disk, an old floppy disk, right? Everything is computer numbers, right? And I think that if we do a story around the pricing, right, it's something you'll remember, yeah? So if you remember 1,000 songs in your pocket, that was the iPod, right? So down here, the price in the first, for the first year is like first come, first serve. One person will pay £1 for a full year. 2 people will pay £2, 4 people will pay £4, 8 people will pay £8, and so on, right? And that's how it's done, right? So if you sign up for the £32 tier, you'll have access to everything for 32 quid, right? This is going to be a Kickstarter, right? And then fingers crossed, we're going to raise 25 grand or something. So
one of the presentations, it was actually Louise was talking about gamification and actually using that to get people to interact. So that's a game, and it's not gamification of money, but it is
it's interesting,
kind of novel way of getting people in through the door, you know. So
absolutely, you've got
a bit different and standing out.
Yeah, you've got to think about your business, whether it's a startup or an established business, as a story, a series of stories, you know. And if people talk about it, that's an important thing, right? Because like nobody really watches TV ads anymore or reads marketing stuff, right? The best way to market yourself is through stories, you know. So rather than doing something for professionals,
Coming back now.
Anyhow, that's me. I think I probably need to stop. Oh, sorry. So sorry. I am so freaking out.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I've been subscribing to a lot of Tiago Forte recently, and he talks a lot about building a second brain, and sort of what you're doing with your library seems to be a lot about like building a second brain for design. Is that sort of what you're thinking about doing, or do you see like the future of education being like tapping into this artificial intelligence that is the School of Design?
I think that some of the work that Tiago Forte is doing is really interesting. I think another guy who's doing interesting stuff is David Perel. They work together, you know, there's aspects of the building a second brain I think is fantastic. There are also aspects of the second brain that I'm like, whoa, what the fuck did you just say? You can steal someone's work. You know, they're not as simply as that saying that. But for example, if you listen to a podcast episode with Tiago and David Perel, Tiago's saying things like, you know, like, why would you learn to be a UX designer? Just go and find someone who's really good at UX, take their website and just remove the logo. And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't give that advice, you know. But I think what they're doing with building a second brain is fascinating, you know. And just, to me, David, it's more a case of like, if you needed some help on your, on a subscription model, for example, right? Rather than giving you a bunch of, you know, useful material and then writing you some notes and then saying, go off and read this, why not just share that with everybody?
Yeah.
Right? You're going to benefit, so's everybody else, you know.
Martin had a question, did you?
Yeah, Chris, I suppose the reason I asked the question about the different levels of membership wasn't really about the membership itself, but in that sense of creating a community, because one of the things we've been successful at doing at Gilchrist & Co, we don't have the resources to go and explain to everybody that might need to know what our brand is and what it is we do. But we've created a community around us that understands who Michelle and I are, what we're doing and why we do it. And that community goes and tells the story for us. You know, it's a very nice way, a very light way. And the way that's happened is that we have provided on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever it is, access to us, our community and information. And I'm just wondering, is that what you'll be doing with the tier?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, the biggest thing that I would say just now that I'm trying to focus on at the minute, and somewhere in here there's a post about this. I think actually it's in the library in the School of Design, and then there's a post called How to Build Your Own School. And so this everything is a prototype school, you know, here's what you do. Education's been hit by a perfect storm. These are the things you need. This is playgroup, right? It's like a social network, etc. The thing I've started to think about with communities is having an email newsletter that you send to people once a week, right? I find that really stressful because I'm like, oh God, I don't want to sound like an idiot in my email newsletter. But having a community that I drop into every day and just talk to everybody and say, oh, you need to go look at this or go look at that. That starts to build a much deeper connection between you and the other people. And that for me is where, you know, community driven things are going to take over you know, email newsletters, because email newsletters is where your audience hears from you once a week and thinks you're amazing, right? But, you know, they could hear from you every single day, you know, and part of my future after I leave Belfast is to spend at least an hour or two in the Slack every day helping people and go read this and here's something else. One of the things that annoys me about education is that, you know, and I'm not talking about Belfast School of Art, and something I wrote today is like, it's not Belfast School of Art's problem, it's universities generally. Everything's, quote, run on a shoestring. They'll tell you there's no money, et cetera, which is really ridiculous because there's loads of money coming into education, you know, and they just don't resource it. So, you know, people think, well, you know, we need you to build a community, and you say, well, can you give me 2 or 3 days, 3 hours off a week to do this? And they're like, no, there's no time for that. You know, we still need you to do the lectures and stuff. I'm like, well, you know, you have to resource this properly. And most universities don't understand that because VCs think that making a great experience is buying colored chairs because they saw it in Google, you know. That's not what is a great experience. What is a great experience is helping people, answering their questions, teaching them some awesome things, and giving them somewhere to hang out where they can meet with other people who have similar opinions, right? That could be in Slack, right? It doesn't have to be in our in Belfast School of Art, right? I mean, the fact that I am contacting my head of school and saying, hey, is there any word about the internet being fixed or what's happening there? And that no one seems to know the answer to that question, I find absolutely horrifying, because I've got students who are spending $4.5 grand turning up on Monday, and we're gonna, suck it and see. And I'm just like, I think it's a disgrace, you know? But community, sorry, I'm ranting. Community is where it's at, Martin. It's like building that community of people. And you're right, then those people will go out and sell it for you. You don't want to spend your whole life selling shit, you know. Other people should be going saying, oh God, do that course. I did it. It's amazing. The lady I spoke to earlier, Ruth Gilby, who was in my breakdown of the unbundling. She said,
very good.
Oh, did I lose
Chris
you?
Back one more time.
I'm done. Sorry.
Oh, no, brilliant, Chris. Really appreciate it. Really good insights into the working world of how you bring an idea, which obviously school design is an idea, and bring it to life, and that journey.
Yeah.
So great to
Yeah,
see.
I'm going to say one last thing and then I'm going to leave because I need to get my dinner. And that is, when I was talking to Ruth earlier, she's also making some courses. I looked at her price and she described that you get 6 months of this and you get something else, et cetera, et cetera. And I said to her, how much is this, Ruth? And she said $997. And I was like, okay. And she said, you're going to tell me that's too low. Or too low. It needs to be higher, right? And I look at my price after having that conversation and thinking £495 for a 12-week course with everything I'm offering is ridiculous. It's too low. It needs to be higher. So 195 is an absolute steal, right? And one of the things I've found being part of a community or being with other people is you'll have a doubt on your price. You'll be like, oh God, no one will pay for it. And then if you have somebody like me coming along and saying, Ruth, that's nuts. It shouldn't be 997. It should be $2,500. Then I listen to myself saying that and I think, what am I thinking? My stuff needs to go up, right? And so being part of a community where you support each other makes a big difference,
Thanks. No, yep.
Right, I'm going to go get my dinner. So nice seeing everybody.
Thank you so much, Chris, for your time. Really do appreciate it. And hopefully
Totally
everybody can connect with you on Twitter and keep in touch. So thank you.
100%. Good to see you, Martin. And good to see you, Dermot. Okay, and David, see you. Bye. Bye.
So, David, back to you. Do you want to thank the guys and see if there's any other questions?
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a really great talk from Chris, and it sounds what he's saying with skill design is unbelievable. So all the best to him. Can't wait to see what else comes of it. Does anyone else in the room have any questions? Anyone else want to unmute and say hello or have any questions for Dermot, Emma, and Louise before we call it a night?
I'll just say thanks everyone for coming. Sorry, my video's gone blank because of the lighting in this room. Means that anytime I put the video on, I just look like a weird person in the corner. So I'll turn that off. So yeah, no, thank you very much. Great event. Louise, love your love the mentorship thing. Brilliant. Thank you. Brilliant presentation. It's really, really good. And yeah, just great. And Dermot as well. Thank you very, very much. Really, really enjoyed yours as well. So yeah, thank you all very much for coming. And good to see you, Martin, as well. See your website. You're starting with the sell straight away. Give a wee bit of you before giving your pricing. A bit of that, a bit of you. Come on, a bit of the Gilchrist. Come on.
There is a reason for that, and I appreciate that. One of my skills, it may be, I've been told anyway, is communication. And I did think about putting up something about Michelle and I and why we do it and all the rest. But apparently, the received knowledge in this is that people aren't interested in you. They're interested in what you can do for them. And I suppose the thing when I look at a professional services is, yes, how good are you and can you do it and all the rest, but how much is it going to cost me? So I take on board what you're saying, Michael. I will think about it.
My thing is, the things that you're selling scare a lot of people.
Top tip from a wedding stationer, never list your prices online.
Is that right?
Because that scares people away. That people want to go to your website to know how much you're going to cost. You need to sell them what you're going to do for them, and then give them that cost and make them believe, yeah, oh my God, that's a steal. That's
a brilliant point.
That's a top tip.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Louise. I will definitely take that on board and go and have a wee.
Tell you,
Martin. Or if you do show your prices, make it like in something that's in something else that they have to like download or take away.
You have to work to get them. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because you have to work to give it to them. So
yeah, I'm making it too easy for them.
Yeah, Martin, I tell you, like you're a case study waiting to happen with UX design because you have all this content on social media and you have all these different websites and Twitter handles and everything. Put out loads of content. See if you get a good UX designer behind you and build the Gilchrist brand, like it'll be unbelievable. So like Dermot was saying, it is worth spending money on UX design, and like you're a perfect case study waiting to happen.
Yeah, I think you're right. There is an awful lot of information, and I think part of the credibility of the practice relates to the longevity of it. We've been about for a very, very long time, and we've consistently been who we are. I think people who went back 10 years and looked at my Facebook page then, would see, you know what, these are the same people doing the same thing, trying to do it in the same way. But is that getting across? Does someone who doesn't know us or is seeing me for the very first time getting the opportunity to very quickly understand what it is we're about? And the useful thing that's just come out of the last 20 seconds is, from Michael and Louise, maybe I'm not doing it the right way. Maybe we're scaring them off before people can get to know us. So
you're your business, and that's what sets you apart. So you need to sell you and your story and what you can give to other people before, like, they can go to anybody, but why do they want to go to you? And that's what you need to, like,
do first.
Focus on and have as your, like, you know, intro, landing, like, you know, that sort of thing, and then get into the more nitty-gritty stuff.
He's doing a good job, Louise, because I'll have to give it. If anyone says, does anyone need an accountant in Northern Ireland, the first person that comes into my head is Martin Gilchrist. So.
Well, I will put that in the brain and know it in future. So
and then they go to the first page of my website. And then, David, they go to the first page of my website to see the prices.
What? Never know. Also, we've got Winnie Sheck here tonight. She was one of our previous speakers at the gaming event last month. We're going to be putting that up on YouTube soon, so it's good to see you, Winnie, and thanks for joining us tonight again.
Sorry, kind of just sitting in the background.
Oh, it's cool. I just wanted to say hello.
Some of the stuff that Winnie talked about in your presentation in terms of obviously the colours and the experience of what you do in terms of developing games kind of reflect over into the UX piece. You could definitely see similarities coming across.
Very much so. It's like what you guys all talked about, like the whole user experience and like part of the development side of things is like just bridging that sort of gap in communication. So everyone did really well, so it was really good to see. Glad not to be on the hot seat this week and just sit back, enjoy my wine in the background. So
yeah, 100%. Thanks so much for stopping by, Winnie. And if anyone has any last questions, now's your chance to jump in, and we'll just probably call it night for the night and hit the leave button, and that we'll see us next month.
For some great UX guys, yeah, definitely keep in touch, and if you have any questions come through us for you about UX, we'll be giving you a shout. So thank you, Louise.
And can I also say, like, thank you for giving me this opportunity as well, because like this is my first experience of like, you know, giving a talk on my UX work, so like I'm so thankful for it, and like yay. So thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. That's what we're here for, just to try and showcase what great skills we do have locally, and you know, to have people on the call from worldwide, fantastic showcase for us. So great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You were brilliant, Louise. It's also worth noting, Jenny, just that me and Jenny were actually talking earlier. We're doing a bit of work around the cohort. It's launching in October, so we'll be taking on new people into the Accelerator program. So if anyone is interested or has a business idea and wants to take it further, like, we have people to talk to for that.
And obviously we'll collaborate with Chris at his School of Design, obviously. Very good. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you all later. Well done, Dermot. Well done, Emma. Well done,
Good night,
Louise.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thanks so much, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.